Our next presenter and one of our very own Jax Ohana instructors is Keller Laros. And Keller had his first encounter with a manta ray in 1985. Don't tell anybody, guys, but that was the year that I was born. So puts it into some perspective. He became a scuba instructor shortly after that, and then a few years after that moved to Hawaii, where he started working for Jack's Diving Locker and has spent his time as an underwater photographer, videographer, and he was able to capture all of these wonderful manta images, and which spurned this lifelong love of manta rays and a nonprofit organization called Manta Pacific Research Foundation. He's one of our favorite people. He's our manta man, and we're going to turn it over to Keller Laros.
Aloha. Thank you very much for coming to visit today and enjoying this manta ray diver presentation that I have for you today. I'm going to talk about a little bit about myself, my experience, then I'm going to talk about the manta rays and kind of about conservation and anatomy and things like that. At the very end, we're going to have a little quiz for people who are taking the class, and for the people who aren't taking the class, you can stay around and hopefully win some cool prizes. So here we go. Share screen. Is that it? What? I don't see it. Share screen, back to slideshow, back to meeting. Oh, at the very bottom. There. Can you guys see that? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, welcome to your Manta Ray Diver specialty class. My name is Keller Laros. I've been a PADI scuba instructor since 1985, so I have one of these really, really low instructor numbers. I began diving when I was in college at Lewis and Clark College. In 1984, we got certified and came with a family vacation over and joined Jeff and Terry Gleischer at Jack's Diving Locker. The rest of the family ended up getting certified. Came back in 1985, did a family vacation again, did my very first manta ray night dive, and was absolutely blown away by the manta rays down there in front of the Kona Surf Hotel. After that, I graduated, and instead of going back to grad school, I became a scuba instructor. Moved to Kona full-time in 1991, and while I was here, the manta ray dive really changed. It went from being 1 or 2 boats a week to sometimes 40 or 50 boats a week, a night now. During that time, I've logged over 13,000 scuba dives. We authored the Manta Ray Diver specialty class in 1993. It's a PADI distinctive specialty. In 2002, we founded the Manta Pacific Research Foundation, a 501c nonprofit dedicated to research, education, and conservation concerning manta rays. Some of the important things we've accomplished, in addition to meeting my wife and having children here in Kona, we've founded the foundation, and in 2009 we got manta rays protected in the state of Hawaii. Currently been involved with the state trying to come up with a management program for the manta ray dive sites. The course goals are to expand your knowledge about manta rays, develop your ability to scuba and snorkel responsibly with manta rays, as well as create awareness about manta ray conservation and the marine environment. Some of the sciencey stuff I want to share with you is that manta rays are members of the animal kingdom. They're phylum Chordata, which means that they have a spinal column. Chondictes, Elasmobranchs, are cartilaginous fishes with 5 pairs of gills. Myliobatiforms means that they're rays, so they swim with a flattened body. Mobulidae means that they're devil rays, which means that they have cephalic fins at the front of their face. And the species are 2 of them. There's Manta Barostris, which is the giant pelagic open ocean manta ray, and Manta alfredi, which is our nearshore manta ray. Manta rays propel themselves through the water by flapping their large wing-like pectoral fins. Manta rays can grow very, very large. Some Manta Barostris are over 20 feet across, one of the largest fish in the ocean. In Spanish, the word manta means cloak or blanket. So when the early sailors saw mantas, they thought that they sort of looked like a blanket, and they called them manta. They also have the Hawaiian name, which is hahalua. Manta rays are elasmobranchs, like I said. They're related to sharks, which means that they have a cartilaginous skeleton. They have no swim bladder, which means that they stop swimming, they sink very slowly. They do have a very large liver with oil in it, so they can control their buoyancy a little bit, but not like fish with a swim bladder, which can make themselves perfectly neutral. Loosely translated, elasmobranch means flat plate-like gills. Manta rays are devil rays, which means that they have cephalic fins on the head of their body. When the manta ray curls the wings up, they look like horns. When the fins are uncurled, they act like fins to force water into the manta ray's mouth. There's two types of devil ray. There's the mobular ray, what you see on the left, and the manta ray, which you see on the right. Mobular rays tend to be smaller than manta rays. Mobular rays are very, very rare in Hawaii. As a matter of fact, in over 13,000 log dives, I've never seen one while scuba diving, and I've only seen them once on the surface. Manta rays, on the other hand, are very common in Hawaii. I'm happy to say that I've done thousands and thousands of dives with manta rays. Mobular rays have a tooth band on the lower jaw and on the upper jaw. Mantas have a tooth band on the lower jaw only. The cephalic fins are the things that really make manta rays special. The cephalic fins, or head fins, curl down and curl up, and they help the manta ray feed, and they're really dexterous and really, really cool. The two species of manta ray, as I mentioned, Barostris is the giant open ocean manta ray, and Alfredi is a nearshore smaller manta ray. They both have a light and a dark color morph. The light ones I've never seen before. The dark ones we do see occasionally here in Hawaii. Of the almost 300 manta rays we've identified on the Big Island, I believe that about 38 of them are Barostris. Manta Barostris was the first one described in scientific literature back in 1791. It was called Manta Barostris. Recently, 2017, a paper was published, and they've now changed the scientific name from Manta Barostris to Mobular Barostris. But I don't want to really do a mobular ray night dive, so I'm just going to keep calling them mantas. The giant mantas, over 22 feet across, one of the things that really makes them distinguishable from the Manta Alfredi is not just their size, but the fact that they have more teeth on their tooth band. Now, when I say teeth, they're not like big, scary teeth like a shark. It's more like coarse grit sandpaper on the lower jaw only. Also, at the base of their tail, where it meets the dorsal fin and right above the pelvic fins, they have a calcified knob, a little bump there. And inside of that are undistended tail stingers. Manta Alfredi, our friend here in Kona, they're the nearshore manta ray. They tend to be smaller. It says in the books that they get to about 16 feet across. They have fewer teeth on the tooth band, and they have no bump at the base of the tail. They also have a very unique set of spots on their abdomen that allows us to identify them very easily. The dark color morph, you can see this video here, shot at Lone Tree Arch. Looks like an alien ship swooping through. And right at the base of the tail, where it meets the dorsal fin, you'll notice a little bump there. There's a Manta Barostris. Really cool looking creatures. And this guy was 16 or more feet across. As I say, very, very rare to see them, but always exciting. First time I saw one, we were at Hoover's Tower, and I was with my friend Captain Dave Mahan. He was diving, and out in the deep blue water, we could see something white, and we weren't sure what it was. But as I got closer, I realized it was just a white patch from this black manta. And then, kind of re-looked, and then you realized that there was this charcoal gray manta ray all around. Super awesome looking creatures. Evolution. Now, manta rays evolved from bottom feeding rays like stingrays and eagle rays. These are ancient creatures that have been around for hundreds of millions of years. Eagle rays and stingrays have their mouth on the underside of their body, as you can see here. The manta, the mouth is at the very front of their body. The mobular ray, the mouth is on the underside, but not way back, like on the eagle ray or stingray. The stingrays and the mantas have nostrils on either side of their mouth. The nostrils allow them to sort of taste the water. We think that mantas may be able to taste the plankton in the water, just like sharks can sense blood in parts per billion. we think that manta rays use their sense of smell to navigate and find where the food is. Manta ray's mouth is very large and deep. When mantas and eagle rays are noticed, if you look behind their eye, there's an opening called a spiracle. Now, the ancient rays, like a stingray, they lay on the bottom, they camouflage themselves from behind, they have sand over their back, and when they need to breathe, they'll open and close the spiracles and water will flush over their gills. It allows them to breathe while remaining motionless. Mantas still have the spiracle, the little line behind the back of their eye, but they're hardly ever used, if at all, because we've never seen a manta ray just stop and not swim at all. For self-defense, eagle rays and stingrays, particularly if you're laying on the bottom, you're kind of defenseless from behind, can't see the predators coming. So eagle rays and stingrays still possess a tail stinger right at the base of the tail where the dorsal fin is. Manta alfredi, perfectly smooth right up to the dorsal fin. Manta baroceras has sort of that bump that you could see in the video. Mantas, really large, really fast, really agile. The only natural predators of manta rays are occasionally very large sharks, or of course man, the most dangerous predator in the ocean. The tooth band, as I mentioned, is on the lower jaw only on manta rays. In this picture, you can see it appears sort of as gray grit sandpaper on the lower jaw. Nature doesn't keep anything that's superfluous for long, and we weren't exactly sure why the manta still had the tooth band. Manta gender. It's important when you're looking at a manta ray or an elasmobranch to determine the gender if you want to identify individuals. First thing I always look at is if it has claspers. And the male manta ray has a pair of claspers that are on either side of the pelvic fins, between the pelvic fins, right below the tail. The opening between the claspers is called the cloaca. Male and female both have a cloaca. The cloaca is where the digestive and reproductive tracts come together. Male manta rays, when they're very young, have tiny little claspers, as you can see in the top right photo. They don't extend beyond the end of the pelvic fins. When I'm trying to figure out which manta ray I'm looking at, I always try to check what the gender is. Manta ray reproduction. Now, mantas are super cool animals. They just blow me away. One of the things that's most amazing, if you get a chance to see it, is a manta ray courtship train. This picture was taken at the Manta Ray night dive site at Gardenhill Cove. And the manta ray in the front was being followed by all these males. My friend Mark Dikos over in Maui, who I'll mention again later, has followed these courtship trails for miles and miles and miles. And supposedly, the male that has the most stamina and strength, eventually the female stops resisting, and the last one there gets to mate with the female. On night dives, we've had the manta rays come in on a courtship train like this, going full speed. And the female is right in the front and the males are right on her tail. It's almost like fighter jets, and she'll turn as tight as she can. And then the male in the number 3 spot will take over the male in the number 2 spot. And they come in just so fast, they just disappear like that. And off they go. And we've seen this on the day dives as well. We've also seen it where it's just really slow, single file, males following the females. We think that the females reach maturity about 10 or 12 years old. The males maybe 6 to 9 years old. And we know that manta rays live about 40 years, maybe longer, sometimes unfortunately maybe shorter. Now, manta rays, when they mate, the male grasps onto the female's pectoral fin in his mouth. And this is very rare video we shot on a Manta Ray night dive. And I looked up and there's Big Bertha, and I write on my slate Big Bertha, and I start shooting video. And just as I started rolling the video, Timbuktu, another manta ray, grabbed onto her left pectoral fin with his mouth, held on tight, and then tried to maneuver himself into position to mate with her. Prior to this, there had been no courtship train that we'd seen. Everything was very calm. It seemed like this was very spontaneous. Now, you see him mating with her. He's holding on to her pectoral fin. He's not breathing. All the other male manta rays are Sugar Ray. They all get excited. There's J Ray, and then he lets go and coughs. Then she takes off at full speed. And she just zoomed off. And as I was rolling, apparently she went out and banged a 180-degree U-turn and just came back over full speed like that. Absolutely amazing. And the people who were sitting around, most didn't recognize what was happening, but the other guides down there all looked at each other like, oh my gosh, can you believe this? Really amazing. Only time I've ever seen it. Manta rays are ovoviviparous. That means that they keep the single egg inside the female. The egg hatches inside the female, and then she gives birth to a fully developed baby manta ray. We know from captive manta rays that the gestation period is approximately a year. When the baby is born, it comes out sort of rolled up like a little burrito. The little ones that we've seen here in Kona are about 3 feet across, just absolutely adorable. We figure they have a pup every 2 to 3 years, and they usually just have one pup. I understand that occasionally they may have had 2, but usually it's just one pup. That's really important because it means they have very low fecundity. They don't reproduce very, very quickly. Cleaning stations are one of the coolest places to see manta rays, particularly during the day. This is a spot where you might find the manta rays. Now, a cleaning station is an area where the manta rays can come and have parasites cleaned off their bodies. The top right photo there, you can see parasitic copepods covering the manta ray's back. And sometimes they will have literally thousands and thousands of copepods covering their back and their body. And you look up and you just see these like writhing colonies of little crustaceans on their back. It must be itchy. I mean, I feel bad for the manta rays. Some people have actually theorized that when manta rays breach out of the water, it's to try to get the copepods off of them. The 2 primary fish that clean manta rays in Kona are the Hawaiian cleaner wrasse, the purple and yellow one, an endemic species here in Hawaii, as well as the Hawaiian saddle wrasse. I think that's another endemic species here in Hawaii. Do I win something? Anyway, here's a video taken at Hoover's Tower. This was on, I remember this well, this was October 31st, 2018, Halloween day. And I'll never forget it because when I came to work, Shannon was dressed in a costume like Miss Piggy up at the front counter. We went out and people wanted to see manta rays, and we had manta rays on both dives this day. When we got to the dive site, Nate jumped for the mooring and he said, there's a manta ray here. We got in the water, we dropped down, and Koi was there immediately. And Koi's very easy to recognize because she's missing her left cephalic fin. She's a very well-known manta ray. This manta ray is grayer, and you can tell him by the spots. Also, he's got the kind of bent tail there. He was getting very, very aggressively cleaned by the Hawaiian saddle wrasse here. He hung out with us for about 15 minutes that day. You can see the divers are all kind of staying down, letting the manta rays approach us. There was some swell that day, and you can see the manta and the fish moving back and forth. Koi was there the entire 90 minutes we were in the water. And while she was getting clean, she swam around, and I could see the thousands of copepods on her body getting eaten slowly away. And we went and did our tour, and we came back and hung out with her for about another 15 or 20 minutes. And the number of copepods was greatly reduced. So these cleaning stations are very, very important for the manta rays. Here's another kind of cleaning that happens. This is a marine leech that I plucked off of this manta ray's clasper on a night dive. This was last year with one of our dive masters. Mike took this video. He was dive master in training, as a matter of fact. And I noticed the marine leech, which is very, very rare and really, really disgusting. Ugh. What do manta rays eat? Manta rays are filter feeders, and they eat plankton. There's 2 types of plankton. There's zooplankton and there's phytoplankton. Zooplankton is animal plankton, phytoplankton photosynthesizes. From captive manta rays, we know that they need to eat about 12% of their body weight every week in plankton. So there, if you're a 1,000-pound manta ray, you're looking for food all the time. This is a copepod, not the parasitic kind, but free-swimming one. Manta rays do what's called ramjet filter feeding. The large cephalic fins open up. In this picture, you can see the nostrils on either corner. The eyes are on the outside at the base of the wings. The water gets forced into the manta ray's mouth. The water goes out through their gills. The branchial filters trap the plankton. When manta rays find a lot of plankton, they'll swim back and forth through it. And they have different types of feeding. They have horizontal feeding where they'll just go back and forth, turning around. We see this both on the bottom, in mid-water, and on the surface. Also, they do the somersault feeding. When they find a lot of plankton in one location, they will do somersaults. We see this most commonly on the night dive, but we've also seen it during the day dive. We've seen mantas skimming the bottom with their cephalic fins, just touching the sand and just going back and forth. Presumably, there's something that's hatching and coming out of the sand. Here's a manta ray doing the night dive. This is Vicky. When I did my first Manta Ray night dive back in 1985, Jeff took us into the shallow water right in front of the Kona Surf Hotel. And in about 15 feet of water, it's like you're in a washing machine. But the lights from above illuminated the bottom. I was there with my family. It was just us and Jeff out on the Blue Dolphin. And at that time, I was just blown away. One of the first Manta Rays we ever got to know back in 1991 was one that everyone kind of commonly referred to as Lefty. And this is a photograph of her. Her left cephalic fin folds up in front of her face. And just everyone called her Lefty, you know? And so back then there was only like maybe 3 or 4 boats that would ever do night dives. It's like, hey, did you see any Manta Rays? Oh yeah, we saw Lefty. I got this photograph back in 1991, and I noticed at that time that her spots were different and distinct from other Manta Rays that we saw down there. A guy that used to run a dive shop in town here, Steve, said that he'd seen her at the Kona Surf back in 1979. We saw Lefty regularly up until 2016, thousands and thousands of dives. She's been in National Geographic magazine, known her longer than my wife and kids. Hopefully she's okay. And we have had Manta Rays go away for years and then all of a sudden come back. So I'm crossing my fingers that Lefty's still out there and safe somewhere. Anyway, she was the first Manta Ray we added to the log, our database. This was a second Manta Ray, and we called her W. And back in the day, some of you are old enough to remember it, but we used what was called photography, where we would take a photograph with a camera, and every now and again you'd get a lucky picture. Back before digital imaging, it was very, very hard to get a good picture. And we got these pictures and glued them into a scrapbook, and we started identifying the Manta Rays that way. Nowadays, everyone's got a camera, and we have citizen scientists helping us identify Manta Rays. If you find a Manta Ray and it's a new one, you get to name it. The things that I'm looking at when I'm trying to identify a Manta Ray are located in this sort of rectangle on the underside of their body. You've got the unique spot pattern. You've got whether it's a male or a female. And I'm always looking to see if they've got some sort of scar or injury that makes them easy to identify. In this case, this Manta Ray is named Nick, and he's got that sort of tweaked left cephalic fin at the very tip. That hasn't always been that way. It's unfortunate, but lots of our Manta Rays, maybe as high as 15 to 20%, got some sort of damage from either fishing line or boat. The size and maturity. Then once you've got a good image like this, you can go and check the Manta Pacific database at www.mantapacific.org. If you get to find a new Manta Ray, you get to name it. Since COVID-19, I believe we've gotten 6 new Manta Rays. 4 of them are pups. So really cool. People have been seeing several new ones down at Keoho. We've also had at least one new one here in the Bay that Emily named. I don't know if you guys saw hers, but Emily named a baby Manta Ray, a little female, and she named her Quarantina. True story. In 1993, the dive had become more and more popular. Like I said, back in 91, it'd maybe be 1 or 2 or 3 boats a week, but by 93, it had gotten pretty substantial. We'd have 3 or 5 boats a night. And while most people are very comfortable just watching Manta Rays and letting them live and letting them be, some people would every now and again would just try to kind of cowboy it and try to grab them and ride them and things. And that eventually, inevitably, scares a Manta Ray away. So the local dive shops at the time got together, and the people with experience in the industry wrote the guidelines for the Manta Ray night dive. And the guidelines are designed to make the dive safe and fun for people and Manta Rays. The guidelines have changed a little bit over the year. Basically, it's divers stay on the bottom, being careful to avoid harming the bottom or harming yourself. Snorkelers stay on the surface. Got to give the Manta Rays wide room to swim in unencumbered. Divers, shine your lights up. Snorkelers, shine your lights down. Try not to blow bubbles into the Manta Ray's face so it's not to frighten them. Most important thing, don't touch the Manta Ray. Stay with your group because we don't want anyone getting hurt or lost. And if you're taking pictures, you want to be considerate of other divers, snorkelers, and the Manta Rays. Keep your lights low. We don't want the Manta Rays running into anything. Back then, that was the first year of PADI Project Aware. And people at Project Aware helped us publish, distribute the guidelines. All the dive shops in town were on board. And since 1993, the guidelines have been so useful and helpful to make this the best dive in the world. Daytime encounters are excellent. If you see a Manta Ray during the daytime, it's a good idea to get into the water, quietly and calmly. Swim with your fins below the surface so as not to splash. If you do choose to free dive down, make sure you don't block the manta ray's path. Try to approach from the side so that they can see you easily. And of course, never touch or ride the manta ray. If the mantas seem to be getting cleaned, like in that previous video, if they seem to be circling one area, don't dive down. You're just going to disturb the cleaning process. It's better to watch from a distance, or if you do feel like you have to dive down, do not enter the cleaning area. Stay off to the side. On a day dive, if you're scuba diving and you see a manta ray, particularly if it's at a cleaning station, don't enter the cleaning area. Give them plenty of room to maneuver. Don't encumber their path. Stay out of their way. Let them touch you. Don't touch the manta ray. And they're curious. Sometimes they will come back and they will circle around. And some of the adults seem to enjoy getting bubbles blown on them. In 2002, we created the Manta Pacific Research Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to research, education, and conservation concerning manta rays. All volunteer, no one gets paid. We just do it because we love it. One of the first things we wanted to do was get manta rays protected. There is no threat to manta rays really in Hawaii. The native Hawaiians revered manta rays as an aumakua, a family god. There's no commercial fishery, but many parts of the world, manta rays had been fished. At this point, we'd known some of these manta rays 10 or 15 years, felt very strongly that we didn't want anything bad happening to them. So we wanted to get manta rays protected. In 2003, Tim Clark, who was working on his PhD at the University of Hawaii and working with the Division of Aquatic Resources, he and I presented to West Hawaii Fishery Council our plea for protection for manta rays. They agreed. The downside is the only thing they could do at the time was make a $50, $100, or $150 fine for killing a manta ray. And they can only make rules for the west side of Hawaii Island. In 2005, our rookie Senator Josh Green introduced Bill 960 into the House of Representatives to make it illegal to kill or capture manta rays. It was never heard in committee. We reintroduced it in 2006. It was advanced to committee meetings, and in 2006, the House passed a resolution urging the Division of Aquatic Resources to study manta rays and come up with a plan for manta ray conservation. There was no funding attached to the resolution. 2007, 2008, nothing happened. 2009, we reintroduced the bill, this time concurrently. Senator Josh Green in the Senate and Denny, Representative Denny, blanking on his first name. Anyway, introduced the bill in the House. It was signed by Governor Lingle, Act 09209, making illegal to kill or capture manta rays in Hawaii. Some of the fines are pretty hefty, $500, $2,000, $10,000. They can confiscate your boat and the manta rays. Great first step, but there's still more to do. Other things that we did for the manta rays were we continued to identify different manta rays using the spots to tell them apart. Citizen scientists are sending us videos all the time. If you see a manta ray and you think you can't find it on the website, send a manta ray to mantaid@mantapacific.org. Denny Kaufman, thank you. We even have a manta ray named Denny. Great guy. He moved back to the mainland now. But his office manager was a lady we all know very well, Nicole Lewin, who's now our representative here in Kona and used to work at Jack's Diving Locker, coincidentally enough. One of the other research projects that we did and we assisted with was one of our board members, Dr. Eli Michael. They constructed a pair of lasers that would fit on top of the video camera and shoot two perfectly parallel laser beams. And then you get underneath the manta ray, you get an image of the manta ray's chest, so you know which manta ray it is, and then two green laser dots. And then with that still image, you can very accurately gauge how big the manta ray is. The largest manta we've ever measured out here was just slightly under 12 feet. Tim Clark, when he was working on the PhD, he wanted to find out how manta rays utilize their habitat. And so he did two types of tagging. He did active tags and he did passive tags. The passive tag was the first one he did, and he put these receivers down on the bottle about the size of a water bottle, and he attached them to the bottom. And then he tagged manta rays with a little transdermal dart, and then there would be a tag about the size of a cigar hanging off the manta ray, and it would send out a ping. And whenever the manta ray swam by one of the receivers, it would pick up which manta ray was there. Tim would then go back out every month or so and collect the receivers, download the data, and find out kind of when the manta rays were at certain areas. It proved the technology worked, but it didn't really show you where the manta rays were 24/7. So then he had to do the really hard job, which was the active tagging. And then he would have his undergrads come out on the boat, and they would go out on this boat for 4 or 5 days, 10 days, as long as they could, and follow a manta ray. One of the first manta rays they tagged was Lefty. After the divers left the dive site up at Makako Bay, they tagged her. And Tim said that night she swam back almost to the tip of Kaiwi Point between Honokahau Harbor and Kailua. And she went in really close to the shoreline and started feeding along the shoreline all night long. And he said it was really nerve-wracking because you're so close to the rocks. The manta ray's right there. You don't want to get too far away because you lose the signal. You don't want to get too close because you go on the rocks or harm the manta ray or frighten the manta ray. So all night long, somebody's got a spotlight, somebody's driving the boat, somebody's using the receiver. About sunset, sun's coming up, and Lefty stopped feeding, and she swam a semicircular route out to sea, at which time she went over 700 feet, and she was right back at Garden Cove that night. Prior to then, I just sort of assumed that if the manta ray was being seen at Garden Cove every single night, the manta ray was hanging out there. But Tim's first tag proved that wrong. She swam like, I don't know, 12 miles between the time the divers left and the divers got back. He tagged another manta ray named Bobbin Ray, and they followed Bobbin Ray, and Bobbin Ray was swimming north. They got all the way up to Havia and the Aleinui Channel and lost track of him. That's about 50 miles. And the seas are giant there. They came back. Now, when they'd be out on these boats, we sometimes wouldn't see Tim for days on end. On the picture here, you can see this is one of the tags. The blue spots and the red spots depict where the manta ray, in this case Mickey, was every couple of minutes. So when the spots are overlapping, she's going very slow, but when the spots are moving spread out, she's going very fast. He would go and spend a week following these manta rays, and sometimes we'd get the phone call, hey, you know, we're running low on oil, the boat's burning oil, or we need more DVDs to watch, or can you bring us some pizza? And we'd reprovision them at sea. When they tagged Big Bertha, one of our favorite manta rays, he called me the next morning and said, I tagged Bertha last night. We're past Waikoloa. She's been swimming north all night long. I thought, well, we're not going to see him this evening. But when we came around Keaholii Point, there was Tim's boat and his undergrads, and we drove up and we tied up to the mooring. Tim came over and tied up. And I said, what happened? Did you lose track? And he said, no, after I hung up the phone with you, she turned around, she swam all the way back. So she swam 40 miles between the time the divers left and the divers got back. It's only about 30 miles between the Big Island and Maui. We've got 300 manta rays we've identified on this island. And they've got about 500 now that they've identified over in Maui over the years. None of the Manta alfredi have ever been seen in both islands. Very, very rare. Tim's conclusion was that it's a closed population that because they have very low reproductive rates and they don't migrate, they need to be protected from fishing. Mark Dikos, our friend over in Maui, also did his PhD on manta rays. In this picture, you can see the Big Island in the front right, Maui in the distance. There's the Aleinui Channel in between. It's very deep out there. It's only 30 miles wide, but it is a very deep, rough piece of water. Mark gathered DNA samples from 20 manta rays in Maui and 20 manta rays in Kona. And then he submitted them to a pair of professors from NOAA and University of Central Florida. And they compared 459 genomes. And what they found was using both the nuclear DNA that both mother and father contribute, as well as the mitochondrial DNA, which only the mother contributes, they've been able to ascertain that if one single male manta ray will cross between the two islands every 50 to 150 years. One female manta ray, single female, may cross between the islands every 500 to 1500 years. So these are two really unique populations. We'd like to get more DNA because the more samples we can get, the better the conclusions we can make. Based on the DNA, Mark feels that there's about 130 breeding females, adults, that is in Maui, and about 100 here in the Big Island. Some of the effects of the population are based on the genetics. And Mark also feels that other stressors on the manta rays, entanglements, boat strikes, and problems with the environment are all things that contribute to the threats that exist for manta rays. One of the things that's a threat to manta ray are fishing hooks. This manta ray is named Jeffrey, and he's got a fishing hook in his right cephalic fin. Now, some of these fish hooks have a barb in them, which they won't come out. But when he swam by, I noticed there was no barb in it, and I was able to reach up and go blink and just pluck the hook out like that. You don't want to do this unless you're sure that you're not going to harm the manta ray, that you can do it very easily and with safe for the people around you. We've seen manta rays with fishing lines hanging off of them dozens of yards long with multiple hooks. And then all you can do is just try to cut the line off. Don't get hooked yourself. Here's a manta entanglement that occurred in Kailua Bay. And we got a call that there was a manta out there in the swim buoy, and there was a tiger shark feeding on it. And Division of Aquatic Resources needed help. So we went out, and you see the manta ray had swam into the chain, rolled, and pulled the buoyant buoys down. The buoys are so buoyant that the ladies snorkeling weren't able to pull them down. Eventually, we figured the manta ray probably drowned because he wasn't able to breathe, and that attracted the tiger shark. And you could see the size of those bite marks. And so the whole time we were in the water getting this manta ray out of the swim lane, the divers on the boat up on the bridge, they could see it and they go, wow, look at the size of that shark, that thing's big. And we were in the water, never saw the shark once. That manta ray's name was China. And the night before, my friend Susan, a guide down in Keoho, had seen China at Keoho with snorkelers and divers that night before. And he was gone. Here's another one. This is Koi. She's missing her left cephalic fin. This is one of those times where they show up and there's a lot of fishing line. And I love Koi. She's one of our favorites. The fishing line was cut all the way into the front and the back. She came back at night and we prepared with scissors. And over the course of about 20 minutes, there's Mike Vines, we were able to cut the fishing line off of her. She doesn't have a swim bladder, so she has to keep moving slowly. And at first, she was kind of shy, but then she realized we were trying to help. And you can see she's kind of letting up there, and Mike's able to cut that line off. And she circled around. And for, of course, about 20 minutes, we were able to get the fishing line off. Now, you can see the back of the wing here, which is very badly cut, has healed completely. But the front of the wing there never healed, and she's still got a little hitch in the front of her wing. Several other manta rays that we know also have cuts in the front of the wing. Kara does, Milena does. A lot of them have been running into fishing line. This is the worst thing that could possibly happen to a manta ray. It's a boat strike. And this manta ray is named Eli. And we saw him on the afternoon dive. And then on the night dive, he came swimming in and was completely mangled. And you could tell one of the boats that had come in had run him over, counter-rotating prop. Just tragic. We've known him since he was a pup. He's named after Eli Michael. Really worried he wouldn't survive. It's been identified that the worst possible thing that could happen to anyone out there is a boat strike. So when a manta ray is swimming on the surface, you always want to try to make sure that people who are driving boats are very observant so as not to run over a manta ray. He is healed up very, very well. He's still got a little bit of scarring, but the entire area has been filled in now. Increasing popularity at the dive site has put pressures on the ecosystem, on the divers, on the community. One of the most dangerous practices we see is when people attract manta rays up to the boats. You can see the lights here designed to attract the plankton, attract the manta ray. Manta rays will attract divers, will attract snorkelers, and it's generally frowned upon having lights attached to your boat. In 2012, the Coast Guard sent out an email to all local charter operators and requested that we gather for a meeting because there had been some conflicts over the dive site. At that time, about 50 different operators met, and they decided that between the Coast Guard, the Division of Land and Natural Resources, Division of Boating and Ocean Recreation, Division of Aquatic Resource Enforcement, and Division of Ocean Aquatics, they decided that the industry, the scuba industry, needed to come up with our own guidelines on how to run a manta ray tour. Everyone kind of looked to us at Jack's Diving Locker because we've been doing it longer than anyone. So we conducted 10 meetings from November till March 2013. And we put together kind of the community standard best practices, tribal knowledge, things that we've learned. Some of the things are kind of basic, like make sure you have enough life jackets for everyone, make sure you have oxygen on board the boat. Some of the things are a little more nuanced, like if you're tying two boats up or if you're tying something to your boat, make sure that the line connecting them is buoyant. we'd seen it where a line would sink and a manta ray would swim into it, harming the manta ray, harming the boat. Some of the things like the lights are things that we'd learned just, kind of common sense. We published them, the tour operator standards, made it available to everyone. Also, we taught a class called Manta Naturalist for tour operators and tour guides. Taught it through Hawaii Community College. It's not required for anyone to do this, but we had a lot of people take advantage of this class. We taught the class, and the goal was to teach the teachers, share our knowledge and experience, try to make it so the people who were taking other people out on the water could get the best possible experience for their customers, both in terms of safety and knowledge and experience. There are other wildlife threats to manta rays. There's fishing, of course, habitat loss, ocean acidification, plankton decline, microplastics, declining reefs, sea temperature rise. There's a lot of areas that we need to work on to continue with our manta ray conservation efforts. Manta fisheries are still in existence in Asia. Traditional fisheries, if you ever get a chance, watch the movie Racing Extinction. John Heinrich, who spoke earlier today, is in that. And what they found is that a small demand for mantas branchial filters in the 90s caused a boom in the number of people fishing for manta rays and caused very substantial declines in manta ray populations. Primarily in China, they use the gills, they grind them up, powder them, sell them in pills to cleanse your blood, make you taller, that sort of stuff. And small subsistence level fisheries turned into large mechanized 20th century fisheries. The good news is that in 2013, we got manta rays added to the Appendix 2 in the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. And what that means is that you're not allowed to fish for creatures, animals, in Appendix 2, unless you can determine that the take will not reduce the species. It can make it only a sustainable level. So it is now technically illegal to fish for manta rays and sell them internationally. The downside is this is only for countries that are part of the UN. Taiwan has one of the world's largest fishing fleets. They aren't members of the UN. Also, it doesn't curtail domestic fishing. So manta rays are still fished in many parts of the world. In January 2018, Manta barostris, the giant manta, was listed on the Endangered Species Act as threatened. So that's good. That's not our local manta ray, but we do see them occasionally. Also, another thing that's just fantastic is that manta ray tourism is really where the money's at and much more sustainable. Mary O'Malley published this great article and found that a manta ray alive is worth about $1 million over the course of its lifetime revenue that it generates in the tourism industry, whereas a manta ray dead and sold in the market in China is worth about $500. So there's a lot of push to try to rechange the environment and rechange the economy so that people won't feel that they have to fish for manta rays, but rather that they can take people out for manta tourism. Gets back to making sure that the tourism is safe and sustainable, but it's a work in progress. For the Manta Ray diver specialty, we're going to conduct 2 dives, an afternoon dive and a night dive. We're going to assemble the gear. We're going to do our briefing. We're going to descend, practice safe diving practices, log our dives at the end of the 2 dives, complete the quiz, and then you're going to be issued the PADI Manta Ray diver specialty. If you want to come and take that class, come on back to Jack's Diving Locker, and you can take it. We have a number of qualified instructors here. And now I've just got a little video show that we can watch if you feel like while we're talking. Are there any questions, ladies?
Yes, we do. We have some questions. Actually, your first question, Keller, comes from a personal message sent to me. Do you remember who your first Manta specialty student was?
No.
Your first Manta specialty student was BG Junk.
Oh, that's right, it was. Hi, BG. Good to see you.
BG also wants to know if you remember which manta ray she named.
Big Bertha.
That's right. And for 10 extra credit points, do you know where she first photographed Big Bertha?
The Golden Arches.
That is incorrect.
Oh.
She photographed Big Bertha at Kealakekua Bay.
You want to see a picture of BG in a swimsuit in 1984?
I don't know if BG Good. Thinks that's okay. Okay, so we have some other questions. Inari wants to know, have there been any more mantas sighted during lockdown?
Absolutely. Absolutely. People have been snorkeling and swimming because, you know, all the people that would normally be working on charters are out of work. So a lot of people have been just swimming and free diving. Like I said, Emily named that one Quarantina. They've had at least 2 other babies down at Keoho, and we just got a new Manta Reproduction this week. So yeah. But all the mantas that we've been seeing have been in the ocean. And I haven't. So yeah. Oh no, that's not true. That's not true. Your husband, they saw baby manta rays at Kauai High at the boat ramp, tiny, tiny little babies. And they told me this when we were driving up there to do some of the morning work. And I got there, I was all excited. I would see a manta ray, but they weren't there the next day. So.
Okay, so we have another question here from one of our panelists. Actually, Carl would like to say, thank you, Keller, for all you and the foundation do for Manta Ray protection. A very important species, absolutely can benefit from such conservation efforts.
Thank you, Carl.
Yeah. Oh, Chad Merrill wants to ask, are mantas social distancing?
Good one, Chad.
That's a good one, Chad. If they do, it's not on porpoise.
Oh.
It's just a fluke.
Oh.
Thank you, Chad. You served that up nicely.
Okay, so we do have a question for our audience. Our question for our audience, we are going to give away a Manta Pacific Research Foundation tank top.
Okay.
And this is very special. Keller, why is this very special?
Well, it's not just any one. We have 2 different sizes. We have a large, and what's the other size?
Our other size, we have a large here, and you have...
Oh, both larges, okay.
Both large.
Now, one of the guys who's been really supportive of us over the years is the marine artist Wyland. And he is a piece of work. He's done the Manta dive with me many, many times. And so he autographed this shirt. It's a Wyland autographed Manta Pacific tank top. And it can be yours.
Okay, and it can be yours if you can get this right. What does it mean for mantas to be ovoviviparous? It's one of our favorite words here.
It is.
Okay, first person to type either on YouTube Live or in chat. Oh, look, Oren's got it.
Oh,
Oren says live birth. Is that correct, Keller?
That's correct.
Yes,
All right, Oren.
Good job,
We're
Oren.
really proud of Oren. Oren has watched all day. We're so grateful for.
But does Oren fit in a large tank top?
We'll find out.
Film at 11.
Okay. And then let's see. Oh, I've got a couple questions for Keller.
Yes.
Keller, how many log dives do you have?
13,216.
And what other countries do? What do other countries do to help protect mantas?
I believe in Indonesia they've declared it a manta sanctuary now, and they were trying to really embrace manta tourism down in Mexico at the Socorro Islands. They've got a sanctuary there, and they get a lot of manta rays down there as well. Manta tourism is it's booming where people can make it work.
And then we've got a couple people. JQ Burgess says, hi, Keller. Bill and Jeannie and who's that? Jack and Jackie.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hey. Jeff says hi too.
yeah.
So guys, thank you so much for watching today and participating. We have a couple more things. We have a Jack's Diving Locker t-shirt. So we've got a Jack's Diving Locker t-shirt and we've got a Jack's Diving Locker hat. We have our last question. Our last question is, we've already asked that. Keller, do you have a question for our audience?
Yeah. Why do mermaids wear seashells?
Why, Keller?
Come on.
Oh, we gotta wait. We gotta wait for somebody.
Somebody's got to answer it.
Inari says to look fashionable, but that's not the right answer.
That's not. Chad, you know it.
Come on, Chad.
BG knows it. Come on.
You
Really?
guys know this. Oh, Jennifer Hurley says because B shells don't
And
fit
Chad said.
and D shells are too big.
Yes, yes. Congratulations.
All right. Well, they got a Jack's Diving Locker hat and a Jack's Diving Locker shirt. And we just want to say thanks you to everybody for tuning in to our presentation today. And thanks to all of our presenters and our sales staff and everybody who came down today to work. And my co-coordinator, Patty, and our technical wizard, Joe.
Yeah.
Jennifer Hurley says, yay, all those dives with Keller have paid off. We just want to give you guys a final thank you, and we want to say, please like us on our YouTube channel, subscribe. We will have our individual presentations up and give us a little bit to recover from our big event. And we'll get those up as soon so that if you didn't get a chance to watch them live today, you will get a chance to watch them on our YouTube channel in the future. We really miss everybody out there who we can't be with, and we cannot wait to take you all diving in the future. So stay tuned, watch our Facebook pages, our Instagram pages, and we will keep you guys updated on what we've got going on there. Thanks again, and aloha from Hawaii, guys.